Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk something about which is not about frameworks, about reporting. I'm going to talk about something that is very different. Any guesses? Organizer can guess. Okay, hint. This morning, how many of us were there watching KJ give his talk? Obviously, most of us. We don't want to miss that, right? Now, everybody, I believe here is a fan of how he speaks, how he presents, and that's something that he is very good at. Um, a hint would be that he is a very good, whoever answers this right gets free lunch. Lunch is on the house anyway. All right, I heard someone saying it first. I heard spokesperson. I heard another one. Personality. Yes. Where was that? Where was storyteller? Here. And I think I heard Carl as well saying that storyteller. So he tells stories. He's a great storyteller. Now, sustainability is also a story that we, as practitioners in the realm of sustainability, have a responsibility to tell the story. Do you all agree with me on that? Yeah? Yes? You can't hear me. Oh my. I apologize for that. Okay. So, it comes back to our responsibility as sustainability practitioners to tell the sustainability story. So I ended that with a question. Do you all agree or disagree with that? Yes? No? Yes. And how do you tell this story? How do you weave it in? Where does this story fall? Through your. Where do you tell your sustainability stories? I know we are troubled, we have a lot of frameworks to do, we have a lot of reporting to do. Where do we tell our story? Where do we tell our sustainability narrative? Investor relations, to our stakeholders, customers. Fantastic, I love this crowd. Let's keep it coming. Publications like media, employees, one more. Actually, two more. Consumers, customers, regulators, our board, potential investors, right? We have to tell how good we are. But why do we need to tell the story? But before I get into that, let me just introduce myself. My name is Manminder. It's a mouthful, so MK. I am from a PR tech startup, trying to sound sexy there. PR tech startup. We do PR basically, but we use a lot of tech to help us make it easier for companies. We use a lot of tech-enabled tools, which I'll share with you later, to tell those stories, those narratives. And we are supported by, just like Matthew, we are part of Cradle Fund, and we are also part, and thankfully, to MDEC as well. So we are one of the first companies that use communication with technology to ensure companies, like all of us here, can easily use these tools to communicate with those who you have just mentioned earlier. Okay? So I'm going to quickly jump into this. So you were saying you need to share your narratives and you have your target audience. But why do we need to share these narratives? What value does it have to our target audience? What does stories mean to you? When you read a story or you see a content about how post-Malaysia, for example, replacing all their offices, post offices with solar panel, how does that affect you as a consumer for post-Malaysia? Does it make a difference to you? Or you go like, you know what, I don't care. Really. They are replacing that bikes now that deliver letters. They are putting all EV bikes. Does it make a difference to you? Yes? No? Yes. Because a company like that is making a difference, right? So they are bringing some sort of, what's that word? What do you like about that? Would you, innovation? But what do stories do? When you hear a story, they inspire. You feel committed because stories have something that nothing else has, like reports. You see, it's very dry, but stories have one thing: emotional value, right? You start to trust that brand. You start to have loyalty towards that brand. You start to engage more with the brand. So this is what we are trying to say. How important narratives are for companies because it ultimately helps you gain that trust with your stakeholders. And I think he also used a word this morning about Gen Zs and millennials, and eventually these are the people that will look at how they work or they are attracted to a company as a workforce. So that takes me to my next point. How do you now create those stories? That's my first question. My second question is, where do you place those stories? I'm going to use the word stories because I believe sustainability practitioners are storytellers too. So where do you create? How do you create those stories? How do you create those narratives? And where do you put those narratives in? Anyone want to try this? Easy, it's easy, it's easy. Let's start with the first one. How do you find those stories about your brand? About your brand?
Talk to your team internally. Report to your team.
Yeah, I think that's the first step, right? Or maybe listen to the boss and the board of directors. Next year, we are going to focus on digital inclusivity. We're going to talk about how we're going to reduce our carbon footprint. In 2025, we should be carbon net zero. That comes from the CEO and the board. Channels down, and then that's it. These are the stories that actually need to reach your audience. But most companies, we do not know where to start. So that's why we have created a tool that can help you create that, navigate that, and ultimately reach your target audience by creating those narratives that are impactful and they are data-driven. So how do you craft a powerful ESG or a sustainability narrative? Whatever you're doing today, remember, when you go back and you're going to start your sustainability journey, or if you're already there, use it as a story to amplify about your brand out there. Because remember, as what you've said earlier, you want to reach your target group, your target audience, your regulators, your investors, potential talent, and that will raise the profile of your company. That will create trust for your brand. So, since it's all about AI and technology, we have AI now that can help you create that story, that can help you create that narrative. So this is why we have ESGNewslytics.ai. It can help you look at what is being spoken around your brand. It can then help you create a narrative. That's my favorite part. For people or SMEs, like Shamini was saying earlier, we don't have a clue how we're going to do it, but we know we have to tell a story. We know we have to start to talk about it. Similarly, coming back to where you're going to talk, that was my question number 2 earlier. You have created a story, you have created a narrative. Where are you going to put it? Where will it be? Your annual report, your newsletters, your social platforms, your mainstream media. I can only hear this group. Okay, now, for sustainability practitioners, the first thing we are often saddled with would be our reports, right? We have reporting, that reporting has a story. It's not just about numbers and data. It's about reaching and creating that emotional link with your target audience. That narrative is important. Top of mind, which company or brand comes to you, to your mind in Malaysia for leading about sustainability? Top of mind. Or which company you like lah, basically. Like, oh, this is really good. It's a green company. They're doing so much for the environment. Very responsible. Body Shop. Anyone? It's a workshop, so we need to be interactive. Decathlon. Interesting. Why, if I may ask?
Decathlon has used EV in their facility in Singapore and then also does circularity. So repurpose, reuse, and has a high level of recyclable materials.
Amazing. What about a Malaysian company? Terus Petronas. Sorry? Sime Davi Property. Are you from Sime Davi Property? Oh my God. I like that. I like that. Any publicity is good publicity. Earth Air. Anybody heard about the company before? Okay, some have. Do you want to share, Shamini? What is it all about?
Actually, they are a social enterprise. They're not a company, so I cheat a bit.
Okay, she cheated. It's a social enterprise. Okay, next one. Anyone? I just heard Sime Davi Property. Come on, guys, we can do better. Okay, are you from there? Okay. All right, because they announce all the carbon emissions, they actually make us take responsibility for that. So how are we attracted to this company? How do we know all this? Because we see, we hear, we read. Similarly, this is our role as sustainability practitioners to reach out, to tell that story, to tell what you are doing. There is a disconnect. You are doing amazing, but you're not talking about it. The story I shared about Post Malaysia, they are doing it. Try to see online if you read about it. You can't see it. So what is happening is very much internal. It's not external. But your audience, the key people, they are external. They want to hear about this. So back to the tool. So it's powered by AI. You don't have to do anything. Just put the name of your company. It will track, analyze all the mentions around your brand. It gives you a word cloud immediately. This earlier, comes from the news coverage. It tracks all the news coverage, analyzes it. It uses lexical AI, which means it analyzes large amount of text content and gives you this word cloud. This is another true story from another very big telecommunication giant in Malaysia. They saw this word cloud, they were shocked. They're a telecommunications company. They wanted to promote digital inclusivity, one of the pillars, one of the themes under ESG. When they saw the word cloud, they're like, why is no mention about digital inclusivity about what we are doing when we want to actually talk about that? So there is a disconnect between their strategy, their sustainability strategy that they are implementing, and what they are talking about out there. So who's responsible about talking about your sustainability efforts? Question. Who is the person who is responsible to talk about your sustainability efforts? Comms. Blame it to the PR. Sorry? Everybody. Fantastic. Everybody in the company should talk about your sustainability efforts. Not just comms, not just the CEO. Everyone should be talking about all your sustainability from top to bottom. And that's how the story gets louder. That's how people start knowing what you're doing. We get so busy doing the fundamentals, we stop talking about what we are doing, and that's when our competitors start to own that space. Among banks in Malaysia, who do you think is leading the sustainability narrative? Let's just take banks first. I heard Maybank. I heard Alliance. UOB. Who is from UOB? Right. Okay. Congratulations. Okay. Data is king. According to data, it's Alliance Bank. Now, how would Maybank feel after that? That is what we are trying to say. We all in this room, I think I heard majority saying Maybank, yes. But when data is there, it's showing you, that means there's a disconnect. If you're Maybank today, and I tell you data shows Alliance Bank is leading the ESG narrative, you'll feel so bad, right? So much of hard work has gone in, but someone else is leading the narrative. That's why you need to own the space. That's why data helps you. So it'll show you about you, your company, in terms of governance, social, supply chain, green building, community cover. And guess what? You can keep adding those keywords. It can tell you, so you can focus on your theme and measure it and see how well you're doing. And the next part, benchmark against your sector. So if you're from the financial sector, look at all the other companies in the financial sector. If you are from telecommunication, look at who's doing well. And you have access to the data. You can see how well they are doing. In a way, you can also see what is their strategy in terms of their sustainability or their ESG. And the best part, you can then look at data across the board, outside your sector. And this is my favorite part. It then tells you what you need to talk about, looking at your data. So you don't have to worry about what's your narrative. You don't have to worry about what story you need to talk about. The platform helps you create that story. So, ultimately, this is what we're doing. It's a combination. Having a good framework, having good tools, having good reports is just one step towards leading the ESG or the sustainability narrative as a company. It's about reaching out to your target audience because you need to increase your shareholder value. You need to increase trust, loyalty. You need to show transparency towards your brand. And ultimately, attracting more talents, getting people to, again, stay loyal to that brand. So storytelling is something that should not be sidelined in your sustainability journey. Yes? So after this, we are all going to become sustainability storytellers. So always remember there are many, many platforms. There are many ways you can tell your story. We have mainstream media out there. You have social media there. It has given you everything. You just have to take it out and use it and get ahead of your competition, get ahead of your peers. I leave you with this quote. 89% of business leaders believe that storytelling, narrative, reporting, media reporting, same, influences their corporate ESG strategy. Remember I told you about the story about the telecommunication company? I sound like I'm rapping. I told you the story about the telecommunication company earlier, where they wanted to promote digital inclusivity. They wanted to show that, anyone in Sabah, Sarawak has access to telecommunication, just like West Malaysia. When they saw that digital inclusion is not in the narrative that's being mentioned out there, they had to re-look at their sustainability strategy. What is not happening? So ultimately, it helps you create better strategy from the platform. Okay? That's about it. I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, yes, sir.
How do you validate your sustainability narratives with the real tools which are used to measure and govern these things like carbon footprint or other tools? How do you validate it? Is the story jiving with the real thing?
Okay, so when the analysis happens, it will actually look at two data sets. One, the news, where it's mentioned, basically publicly available information. So it looks like all your publicly available information, and that's why we call it ESGNewslytics.ai. The AI looks at cross of those information, what is available in your website, your annual report, your newsletters, plus in news. It then looks at the sentiment, it looks at the contextual messaging in it, and finally gives you the narrative that fits into what you want to say through your own information and what is being said about you in the public domain. I hope that helps.
Yeah, because there is a bit of a disconnect. Some Maybank seems to be number one, but the narrative says Alliance Bank. Why is that?
Because it is measuring against, okay, so there are 12 keywords that is looking up. So under ESG, you have 30 plus themes. Here we are looking at 12. So it's measuring against those 12. Now, as I said, data is king. You here, when we perceive it, we might say, oh yeah, Maybank is. And this is what happens. A lot of companies may think that they're leading. But when you present them with the data, then I think data wins. Any other questions? Yes.
So
whatever is the application, you use NLP technology to extract the text analysis and then you prepare a word cloud for that.
Yes, that's right. So we have an NLP, we have Lexel AI. So these are the tools that we're using. It's powered by a GPT-O 4.0 machine. Okay, so that's about it. So after this, our mantra would be that we are going to be sustainability storytellers. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.